Hi everyone. So before I begin, I want to thank you for joining me on today's podcast. Today's podcast is not like the other two around the Krisullis project, but we should also check and follow those insights as they are all about unemployment worldwide, what's happening with markets right now directionally, and how businesses are being impacted owing to not just the pandemic, but things going forward. Today's podcast is called Beyond the Noise, and why I chose to launch this podcast is because I feel that a lot of times, many things that we do are centered and come from a space of fear. And fear can be very paralyzing, even though it's an emotion that has been around for centuries, maybe even millennia, and is a really prehistoric emotion. It drives us in ways that are often unconscious and lead us to do things that maybe we might look back and think more about how we could have shown up better. But more on that, and why Beyond the Noise is here today is about a post that I mentioned on my LinkedIn, on my Facebook a few days ago, is some of the experiences that I have had personally, and to share this with you based on my own perspective, my own views, and to open up this non judgmental space in a way where you two can chime in and share if this is an experience that you have gone through, if this is universal experience, and how it feels to you, how it looks to you. So, I have talked a lot about my experiences around being on social media, especially around LinkedIn. And, as I begin to recall, I know that 2018 and 2019 were huge, expansive experiences. And while I have been working in multinationals since 2000, being on a social platform, and I use the word social consciously, being on a social platform that is interactive, where you get to meet people from across the world, not just from a perspective of people you're already working with, but also from a perspective of people that you could work with. And the kind of things that you learn when you get on the platform has been huge. And I am so grateful for that, because I think that LinkedIn, being the largest professional platform with, I think, over 700 million users right now, provides ample opportunity for us to network, to find each other, to be able to position our service and support, to reach out, especially if you're looking out for a job, and so much more in terms of learning and upleveling. And there are some things that I want to share with you that I have learned through creating content on LinkedIn, but also paying attention to some of the dynamics that are stated and some of the dynamics that are unstated on LinkedIn. Now, for many of you watching in, if you have created content, especially video content, because video content is so much more dynamic, you almost feel like you can touch and feel the person, like we're doing right now, because it's so conversational. It has a flow, a warmth to it that you might not quite feel into while reading a post. But I could argue again about how powerful words can be. And so 1 year of doing that allowed me to open my mind to many of the practices that are important in my domain. And I'm sure this is something that you can relate to, regardless of what domain you belong to, regardless of the sector, industry, how many years of experience, the generation that you belong to. There's always something that can be quite insightful when you're leaning into someone's post or watching their video. And those are things that I continue to lean into. Some of the other things that I felt, which set me back, and I take full responsibility for it as I share this, is being invited into several of the pods where people either start these pods or they invite you in because they think that your content could add to the experience of what's happening in these pods. And what are these pods? These pods are these groups that are created in the message section with people no matter where they come from. And I think it's a very powerful experience. I think it's a very beautiful experience because, while there are so many users and subscribers on LinkedIn, there is only a really teeny tiny percent of people actually creating video content on LinkedIn. So a lot of times you might just bump into the same people, but a lot of times you might bump into new people, and that helps you build connection, helps you open up and expand your network and learn something that you probably didn't know about before you got into the pod. So that's the good part of that experience. But some of the things that I started to feel into were things that I felt I could not relate to. Coming into a pod and being pressured, feeling pressured to like content, even when the content was something that I could not align with. And the more time that I spent in the pods, while I made some really, really great connections that have even, translated into business collaborations, business opportunities, and the work that we are doing within the Krisullis project right now. I also feel that, I felt very suffocated. I felt very, isolated around my identity. And like I said, I take full responsibility for this. I feel that many times, I had to be or show up a certain way, even though I was not feeling into it. And how that translates is that, I believe that content and I believe that interactions need to be genuine. And a lot of times when we're in these pods, there is a sort of unstated, elitist, sort of energy that you can feel into, depending on which country you're from, depending on your gender. And these were things that I started to, feel pressured around. And to be honest, I'm the kind of person that, while I like pressure for the right reasons, if something moves me in a way to act positively, I believe that it needs to be done in a space and come from a space of respect, kindness, listening, compassion. And that to me was something that was starkly missing in the experience of being in these environments with other people. And so some of the things that I'm inviting you to think about is, elements of sincerity, elements of integrity, elements of being intentional, because these are things that I have continued to be reminded about through this pressure to be a certain way, but also, post 2019 when I decided to step back and I decided to really get quiet. And when I mean quiet, what I mean is to understand and reconnect with my own purpose and be sincere. So while I am identifying some of the pressures that I have felt around being, in these pods, pressure to like and to gain a certain number of following, pressure for a certain number of views, I do believe that is very external to the way we create our identity. And I might be getting spiritual here because I've had an awakening a couple of years ago, and I continue to, dive into and immerse myself in transformational work each day with myself as well as with my clients. But I believe that there is a spiritual link to, the opportunity that we are given when we are on these kind of platforms, when we when we are part of these pods and things like that, because it really starts to encourage us to think about why we are here. So why am I here, and who do I want to be? Not just for the camera and for the audience, but who do I genuinely want to be? And I believe this is something that a mentor, taught me about, I think 9 or 10 years ago. That she told me that peace comes into our lives when we are able to transcend this dissection or separation of who we are in different parts and different roles that we play in our lives. And when we can have a sort of equanimity, a sort of sense of unity as it relates to the way we think, the way we act, the way we show up in every area of our life, that builds a certain transparency, that builds a certain strength, courage, clarity, and through that we're able to radiate that transparency, that genuineness when we show up with others, because we don't have to second guess who we are. We don't have to doubt our intentions. We know why we're doing what we're doing. And I believe this is daily work, because we're always changing, we're always evolving, and being mindful of the observations that we make help us along so that we continue to bring the message of who we are, bring the intention of who we are continuously back, continuously inside. I know that we're at a point where the world is so externally driven, like the same example around LinkedIn, worrying about the way, how many followers we have, or worrying about our recommendations and how people might view us, so that other people who view them viewing us changes the way they view us. Do you know what I mean? And so that is a very exhausting process, because all we're doing is trying to manipulate the external environment. But when we start to bring it back, and when we start to understand the more foundational and more sustainable elements of being transparent, being purposeful, being intentional with who we are everywhere, then we don't really have to be conscious of the way we show up, because it's a part of who we are. Um, a couple of other things. So I've made some points out here that I wanted to cover. Is I remember reading this book by Chuck Palahniuk. I think that's how I pronounce his name. It was such a brilliant book, and the main character, the main role in this book, shoots her face off, and while the undercurrents of the theme are quite grotesque, there are a lot of deeper insights into this book. And in this book, he mentions how looking at yourself continues to be an ongoing process, because if I can play the observer to who I am, and continue to analyze and observe my actions and my thoughts without judgment. Because I think it's really easy to, we've been conditioned, we're in a world where we're continuously judging ourselves. So without shame, without guilt, without embarrassment, to be able to observe ourselves, it's kind of like holding a mirror backwards into a mirror, because it never really, the object to observe is also the subject. And I might be getting philosophical out here. I've currently been, reading Jean-Paul Sartre on his book Being and Nothingness, and he speaks so eloquently about this as well. The ability for us to observe, and who is the observer really in the end. So the example I want to bring in is, if I have to look at who I was through that really, really challenging time on LinkedIn, the pressure I felt around my identity, around my authenticity. Um, the question that arises is, who is watching that experience? The answer is me, but who am I? And so these are interesting things that we can do. These are part of practices that I bring in with my clients, but you can also as well, to really quieten the mind and be able to observe who you are in the moment. You can even go back in the past, but it really, really works powerfully as you begin to integrate time and space so that you can understand that playing the observer, even while you're in motion, allows you to be more intentional, allows you to be able to access your core values and make decisions from a space that is genuine. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was Clubhouse. So, because over the last 3 to 5 months of building, starting the work to build Krisullis as a project, I've been consciously stepping away from social media, and I've also shared this on a written post 2 or 3 days ago about just the elements of who I was in my erstwhile avatar, of feeling the fear of feeling judged, the fear of needing to show up continuously for the world, was something that I have begun to understand I don't need to do. I mean, it's my call. It's all on me, like I said at the start of this message. So everything, every action that we take, you and I, all boils down to the choices that we make, and we can always give ourselves the permission to choose in the moment how we want to show up, how we want to interact with the world, because those choices are going to have huge repercussions on who we are becoming. Yeah, you might be thinking, yes, repercussions on the way people will see you, but that again is external. I would encourage you to look at the part around who you are becoming in the current moment with the choices that you make. And so, coming to Clubhouse, I have decided to start a club with a friend of mine to gain some practice around what Clubhouse is all about. I've been listening in. I think it's pretty interesting because it gives people an equal playing field, no matter which country you're from, who you are. It crosses boundaries of all those things, even beyond your identity, because having a conversation helps you at beyond a certain level to remove those masks and just get honest, so that you can connect with another person and vice versa. So I'm really looking forward to being on Clubhouse to also talk more about Chrysalis, our first program that is going to be launching very, very soon. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about what it means for you to have an identity. How do you connect your identity with your core beliefs and what's important for you? Do you feel pressured, when you get out there, when you interact? Have you created content on social media, and how does that connect with your identity? Several questions, but drop me a line and let me know what you think about this. And I look forward to seeing you very soon on another episode of this podcast, Beyond the Noise. Thank you so much. Bye bye.